But those of us who were part of the Alabanza, or the singing and dancing group, we were kind of the hype group every single night. So we were the opening group to do that, and it was, again, we had just had such a blast bringing that to the kids, just to see the smiles on their faces. Me personally, as somebody who has worked in kids ministry, it was always just a real encouragement to see how enthusiastic the kids were to praise and just come and learn about God. After we went, sketch would be next. Sketch was always just some sort of funny activity that they had. There was one not so funny activity they had where there was a tube, and one person was on one side of the tube blowing, and the other person was on the other side. Now, inside that tube, there was an egg. I don't know who came up with this game, but the goal was to get the egg in the other person's mouth, and it always resulted in some kid not having such a good day. But all the other kids thought it was hilarious, so there's that. But the teaching during this summer was focused on sharing the gospel through the parables of Jesus. The parables that we went through were the prodigal son, the good soil, and the treasure in the field. And this was told through either skits or object lessons most of the time. Kudos to all of the teachers there. They did an absolutely amazing job just holding the kids' attention and keeping them engaged throughout that entire time. I was very, very impressed with that. After that, there would always just be some sort of game or obstacle course for the kids to finish out with before they left. At the end of the week on Friday, that was, instead of us going out into the community, that is when the kids came to the ranch. And that is where we had Kids Club on steroids. It was absolutely amazing. Pretty much everything stayed the same, again, just bigger, and it was a blast. We still had our praise and worship team, still had our story, but for our game, we had a 50 by 50 tarp spread out, just slathered in water and dish soap, ready for the kids to come and play what's called crab soccer, which is where you play soccer, but you don't get to use your feet. It's really interesting. But along with that, they also play different water relay games, different obstacle courses on the tarp, and the kids always just had a blast. That was really everybody's goal in that moment, was just to make a time that those kids would never forget. Now, during our time, this is kind of a praise of something that happened that while we were there. On our last week, while we were out in the colonias doing our different things for the kids clubs, some of the moms came up to Pete, again, one of the missionaries, and was talking about just how amazed she was with everything that was happening and how she had other friends in other communities that the ranch was not already with, and she was inviting the ranch to go and be a part of that, which is just a really big deal, seeing that expanding into different areas. Now, with all of the good times and amazing times seeing God work, and even in this, God worked, but in all the good times, there were still many struggles while we were there. Time of exhaustion from the work and from the heat, and really just a lot of spiritual warfare was going on during that time. I mean, the enemy knew what we were doing, and he was going to do whatever he could to keep us from doing that. One of the things that God laid on my heart during that trip through that was a lot of the times that I felt most attacked was right before we left for the kids club. And one of the things that God kind of brought to mind was how every time before Jesus performed a miracle, or before he took another step closer to the cross, he would always go alone into the wilderness and be with the Father and just have that alone time in prayer. And I just really felt God pulling me to do this, and it's something that he really worked through. I mean, there were times where I was completely exhausted and I couldn't carry on for the rest of the day. And after that time in prayer, I just felt a rush of energy. I felt a rush of joy and just ready to conquer the world. I mean, it was awesome seeing God work in that way. But another really big part of that was the prayers and the text of encouragement from back home that I got. Those of you who sent them, you know who you are. That I appreciate it more than you know. They were, whether or not you know it, they were always sent at the right time, right when I was going through some of the hardest struggles while I was there. And that was always the time where my phone ringed, and one of you here would have sent me something that was just really just pushed me to keep going. Before I get into kind of my main takeaway from the trip, there was just one piece of scripture that really kind of summarized this takeaway. And if you would like to open it up in your Bible, Galatians 6:2. I'm reading out of the Amplified, but it says, "Carry one another's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the requirements of the law of Christ." That is the law of Christian love. This is right after a chapter 5, talking about the different struggles between the flesh and the Holy Spirit, and just that spiritual warfare going on, as well as in the verse right before this, talking about the believer and people struggling with sin and how we should be there for each other. This is a huge part of life on the ranch. I mean, that community of believers, we were always there for each other in that way. I mean, that trauma bonding in the beginning that felt so terrible in the moment drew us closer to each other before the work began, so that we would be ready to be there for each other. When one person was down and exhausted or discouraged, there was always another one to come and help them. And that person who helped him might be the person who needed it the next day, and it would just keep working in that cycle like that. It was really beautiful just to see that. Everyone there, we just became a family. People who didn't know each other a month before were sharing struggles and carrying each other through things that they might not even share back home. And it just really opened my eyes to the fact that this is what the body of Christ should look like. When we are going through struggles, when we are chasing after what the Lord has called us to do, and the enemy will attack us for that, we should be there for each other. Now that I'm back home, this has been kind of a personal challenge to myself, and I would also challenge you. But are you surrounding yourself with these kinds of people? People who will help you to carry your burdens, people who you can lean on in those times of struggle. Not only that, but are you being that person to others? You can't expect that of other people if you're not putting that in yourself. To steal a quote from Lord of the Rings, "I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you." There are some burdens that are not always physical, but in those spiritual burdens, we can help carry each other, which is just, again, so much of what goes on at the ranch, and something that I was very thankful for. Some prayer updates on the horses. What we were establishing with the foundation, they have built up the classroom portion of that. It is still in progress for the bathrooms. Along with that, there are also boarding courses with Javier. Javier is the horse trainer there. With no partiality at all, he is easily the best horse trainer in all of Mexico. He just has a way with horses where he can take a completely wild horse and tame it. But they are starting a program where they can bring in horses for Javier to train them, and then they'll send them back. So that's just another opportunity where people can start those relationships with each other and then begin to share the gospel through that. Along with that, just be praying for the Goodrich family. They are about to go through a big change in their life. Molly, their oldest daughter, will be moving back to America, or the U.S., and they'll just be going through a lot of change with that, both Molly and the family, so just keep them in your prayers through that. But I also just wanted to take this time to thank you, all of you who supported me financially and through your prayers. I appreciate it more than you know. I couldn't have done it without your willingness to be obedient to the Spirit of God leading in your life. From my time, in conclusion, I'd 100% recommend and encourage all of you not just to go on a mission trip to La Paz, Mexico, but to go to the ranch and become a part of the family. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Testing. Well, good evening, Southside. For those of y'all that don't know me, my name is Blaze Gardner, and this is my friend Ben Zimmerman here. And tonight we're going to be sharing with all of y'all an opportunity that the Lord gave us to serve. this past summer at this place called Snowbird Wilderness Outfitters. And so, yeah, we're just going to go right in. Next slide, please. Yeah, so Snowbird, it's this Christian retreat and Christian summer camp where believers can get away for some time. And it's this camp in about 8-9 hours away in this little rural mountain town called Andrews, North Carolina. And so it's this time where believers can get away and grow in fellowship with one another, but also mainly grow in fellowship with the Lord. And so while they're there, they get to experience over 24 different wrecks between whitewater rafting, laser tag, all these different things. And it's just this really good time for them to grow in fellowship with another. But with the Lord, they're getting poured into with all these different sermons and all these different messages and worship services. And so, yeah, next slide, please. And so, yeah, more specifically, what me and Ben served on was called the Element Team. And so Element stands for Leadership, Mentorship, Next Generation Training. And so, yeah, so it was me, Ben, and these 17 other Element high school age guys. And we had our 4 Element leaders. And so the leaders and the pastors, their main goal with us was to pour into us and to grow us as the next generation of Christian leaders, as all Christians are called to be leaders to the extent that the Lord has given them and the ability that the Lord has given them. And so, yeah, that's really what Element is all about. And we also learned so much just through the day-to-day life of what we did as well and the work that the Lord gave us the opportunity to do. And more specifically, what we did is we worked with students. And so what that looks like for each of the 10 weeks while we're there for the summer camp, we have over 600 new students come in with all of these different churches from all over. And so, for example, my first time working with students, I got to work with students twice, and Ben got to work with students 4 times. And so I had a group of 5 younger high school age guys, and before they got there, I was already assigned their names, and I knew their names, and so I intentionally prayed for them. And as soon as they got there, my goal is to get to know them as soon as possible. Hey, what do you like? What sports do you do? All of these different things. And so the whole week, the 5 days that they were there, I got to work alongside them with whatever they were doing. I got to do all the recreations with them, eat breakfast, lunch, dinner with them, and I also got to sit in with all the different sermons with them as well, and also just to help them break down what all the pastors were trying to communicate to them and through the Word. And also just working hard was another major part of this. What Element more did when we weren't working with students is we did more of behind-the-scenes kind of work, which is like, your landscaping, handing out food to the students and the people that were there, taking out trash, cleaning bathrooms multiple times a day. And so, yeah, we're just doing these things all alongside these other high school guys your age, and they're going through all these similar struggles and just life back home. And, like, it's just so cool because they're these other young Christian men seeking after the Lord, and you're doing it side by side with them. And you learn so many things from doing life with them day to day with them as well. And another thing we did was Fun Fridays. It was just this amazing time where we got to take every Friday afternoon of the week and just to really spend time with them as well, whether that be going to a lake or having a bonfire at a staff family's house and growing with them intentionally as well. Really getting to know these other guys. They're just like us that would come with their youth groups when they were younger. And so it was just this really good intentional time getting to know them as well. Like I said, they went through similar struggles that we did while we were there. And it was just really good time of fellowship with other young Christian young men. And so, yeah, we see pictures of us going to a lake, jumping off of a 25-foot rock, playing basketball, all these different things. So next slide, please. And so, yeah, also we got the places where we worked. On the top right corner, you see the Super Coop. And that's where we had all of the 600 students and all the staff there as well, where we held all of our worship services at. And this is where the Lord spoke to everybody here. And he also spoke to them just through the staff as well when we got to do share groups and help break down these sermons with students. And also to the bottom right corner, you see the coop, and that's where most people would eat. And then you also got the kitchen, and then the fire down there, that's also the new property at Snowbird, where they're doing a lot of the new projects as well. And that was another main project that we did for them, was clearing out a lot of the new brush for all the new major projects and cabins they're trying to get in there. And so, yeah, I'm going to hand it off to Ben now. He's going to get into a little more as to why we did what we did. And so, yeah, next slide.
All right. Thank you, Blaze, for that. I'm going to be sharing a little bit more of the spiritual side of things tonight. And to answer the question on the screen that you see is why we did what we did. And that's the main reason of why we were at Snowbird in the first place. And so number one is we did it to equip the church. And what is the church? The church is a body of believers, which is this. And so that's one of our main missions, is just being able to serve kids, students, when they come in. Even though it's only for 5 days, we're able to pour into them so much, and that is our ultimate goal for the week that they're there. The second one is to impact this generation. For many of you guys know, this generation is going through a tough time. They're being exposed to different things that the world has never seen before. And so we are there to help them and meet them where they are, to encourage them to be able to just kind of get into the muck of life with them while they're there for the 5 days at camp. The third reason is we're able to proclaim the gospel. That's another huge reason that we work at Snowbird, is so we can proclaim the gospel, because there's a lot of students that come to Snowbird, and the sad reality is that they don't know Christ. And so we're able to proclaim the gospel to them and to be able to show them who Christ is, hopefully, during their time there. And then the fourth reason is to reach students. That is our ultimate goal. Through all these different aspects of what we get to do, is what Blaze just shared, serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner, cleaning bathrooms. Through that, we're able to serve them indirectly, but it's allowing them to be able to have a good time and be able to have everything around them stay clean and functional, to the point of where we can serve them in a spiritual way as well. Next slide, please, Mr. Johnny. Thank you. So then, why are these things so important? So, as I touched on a couple seconds ago, is because we live in a spiritually dark world. Students, most of the time, come from public school. That's the majority of the people that we see. Private school and public school is the biggest mix that we have. And for many of you guys that know, the public school system is not doing very good right now. And so if you guys have, students that are currently enrolled in public school, you guys know that firsthand. But if you guys have ever had students in public school, you guys also know that as well. Students are exposed to the world at school. I was able to work, as Blaze had mentioned before, with students about 4 times while I was there. And I had a group of students from the ages of about maybe, about 11 to 14 years old. And an 11-year-old boy was sitting in front of me and explaining to me that he had been exposed to pornography at school. And at this young age, these kids had already experienced this. Their burdens were already so heavy, even at a young age. And so we were able to kind of just get into the muck of life with them and to experience what they're experiencing, to bear some of their burdens for 5 days. And even though, some people say, it's only 5 days, well, we get to spend so much time with them. Every single night, we get to do share groups. And basically what share groups is, we're leading them in what they've learned throughout the day. They have 3 services that they go to, one in the morning, and then they have a breakout, and then they go home, they come to campus, and then they eat lunch, and then they get to hang out and do recs, which is recreations in the afternoon. And then at night, we also have another service. So at night, share groups is basically designed to allow us to be able to walk through them, to be able to show them what they kind of learn throughout the day. And so we were able to just sit down with them and just kind of work through some of that with them. And then we may be the only Jesus that they have ever seen and that they ever will see. And what do I mean by that? So obviously, we are able to serve as ambassadors for Christ, and that's how we do it. We do it through service, through our acts of service to them. We're able to pour into them, and that's kind of how we are able to show what Christ has called us to do. And so social media with these young students is also a very big influence on these children, on these students. And so we're able to kind of just get in the muck with them, like I had previously mentioned a few minutes ago. And we're able to kind of pull them out of that for a time, and we get to set them on dry ground again, and we get to push them towards the cross of Christ again, and we get to tell them that their identity is not in their failure, and that their identity is not in the situations that they're going through. Their identity is not in the things that they're struggling with, their addictions, the things that they're doing that they know that are not what Christ has called us to do. And so we're able to kind of help them work through that and to be able to show them some of the things that Christ has called us to be as Christians. So next slide, please. So for moving on to like kind of what Blaze and I were able to learn while we were there is, so what and how did we learn and grow at Snowbird? So our team was able to walk through Ephesians, the whole book of Ephesians. We started week 1 with the book of Ephesians. And week 1, our leaders, we had 4 leaders that Blaze had mentioned a little bit ago, and they started walking through the book of Ephesians for the first 2 weeks, and we would do it every single day. So we'd walk through Ephesians, we'd do like maybe 2 verses every day. And they'd plan it out to the point of where they would start at the beginning of the book of Ephesians and then end the last day on the last verse of the last book, or the last chapter in the book of Ephesians. But then also sprinkled out throughout that is they started to do like topicality studies. So they taught us like, what does it mean to be a biblical man? What does it mean to be in a dark world but be a light in it? And then so forth and so on. So we were able to be poured into so much. We also were able to go through Romans chapter 8 with students. So when students arrived on Monday, we were able to walk through Romans chapter 8 with them throughout the whole week. So we would start with Romans chapter 8, verse 1, and then by the end of Friday night, they would leave with the last verse in Romans chapter 8. And we were able to walk through that. And the reality is that Blaze and I heard those sermons every single time for 10 weeks straight. And you're like, doesn't that get redundant? Yes. Do we learn something every time? Also, yes. And so it's interesting because like once you start realizing that, like once you start taking notes the first week, the next week, it kind of starts filling in what you missed the first week. And then it just keeps going down the line. So then at the end of it, you're basically a theologian on the book of Romans. And so also while we were there, we were discipled, as like I had said. We were also able to do small groups. We had 17 other guys alongside of me and Blaze. And we were able to kind of do small groups with them. We went out to McDonald's sometimes. We went out to Dairy Queen and just talked about life. And, and what Drew had touched on a little bit ago is it's amazing how much you trust somebody that you just met. Like you share your life with them. You share your struggles. You text them, hey, where are you? I need to talk to you. You talk to them about the things that you're struggling with somebody who was a stranger to you 5 weeks before. And so it's such a beautiful, beautiful picture of what the community that we had there. And then something else to touch back on something that we do with students is that we are in direct contact with the youth pastors through the entirety of their stay at camp. So the reality is a lot of our students that come here are struggling a lot. They're struggling with different things at school, with addictions, so forth and so on. So we're able to partner with the youth pastors throughout the entirety, and then we're able to walk through with them some things that we think may be an issue, that we may think that might need to be brought up, that the youth pastors can present to them in a way that they see fit. And then we're also able to send them home with some material that they can use for the next year until we see them once again, hopefully, the next year. And so I'm going to share the next little part here is what we struggled with while we were there. So some of the things that we struggled with is being disconnected from you guys, being disconnected from our family. As Blaze had mentioned before, we were about 8 or 9 hours away from home. And so that direct contact with family, with friends, with our families was, we missed that a lot. And that was hard. For the first week or two, it really set in that we couldn't go and talk to our dad. We couldn't go talk to our mom if we had to talk about something. We were stuck in a place, and we could phone call them, but we couldn't, they wouldn't always be able to answer. And so that was a big struggle. Another struggle is the reality that we were there, while we were there, is that we were serving 24/7, basically. And so in the morning, we would wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. At night, sometimes we wouldn't go to bed until 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning. So just imagine how much sleep deprivation that we got over the course of 10 weeks. And so that caused us to be able to lack the amount of sleep that we needed to be able to function. Because we were up about in between 18 to 20 hours a day, working consistently and continually. And so we were able to, and then something else too is the spiritual aspect of that is we're always pouring ourselves out to others, not necessarily with students, but with each other too. We had 17 other guys with us. They were struggling too, as much as we were. So we were able to, if we were in a good mood that day, we were able to encourage them. And then if we weren't, the next day, they were able to encourage us. Kind of like what Drew had shared in his testimony tonight, is that we were able to bear each other's burdens. And we did that, I think, very well. And then some of the good things about what we were doing is we were in a great, great community. Our team consisted of 19 young men. We had 4 leaders for the men's side. And then we also had 20 girls on the other team as well. And then we had about 250 students collectively, or 250 staff, collectively on campus that were living together. And so that community was so close. You know, like in my mind before I left, I was like, wait a second, I'm not going to be able to know all these people. Yeah, you do. Because you're living with them 24/7. And so it was such an awesome community that was built and that I was so, so thankful for. And so then as I get ready to conclude tonight, I just want to say thank you to everybody who reached out to us. As Drew had mentioned a little bit before, there was people that sent us texts at the most random times, but we needed it then. And God was able to orchestrate that so that we were able to use that for our good. And so I just thank you for everyone who, sent us text messages, who were able to support us financially in some minor ways in that way too. And I thank you for Pastor Fred and Pastor Mike for giving us an opportunity tonight to speak. Blaze and I had an awesome time just being able to be on mission for 3 months. And we were just so encouraged, and we were able to grow so much while we were there, and we were so thankful. We would definitely like to do it again, but as of right now, the Lord's leading us in different directions. So we'll see what happens next. And I just want to say thank you for you guys coming out to listen to Drew tonight. His testimony was also very encouraging, and I hope that tonight we weren't too boring for you guys. And hopefully, if you guys have any more questions tonight, I pray that, or I ask that you guys just come up and talk to us. We'll be happy to talk to you guys, answer any more questions that you guys may have about some of the other aspects of Snowbird Wilderness Outfitters. So, thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that. And so we're going to take them up on what they just said. So come on back up here, gentlemen. We don't let out till 7:30, so we have 9 minutes for questions. So, and of course, we didn't discuss that part, right? So this is kind of impromptu, brother. Come on up. Come on up. So if you have a question for any of these guys, I think this will be great. They have an opportunity to share a little bit more. So if you have a question you'd like to ask, hop up and holler it out, and we'll see how they handle that question. Anybody? Oh, yes, ma'am. Go right ahead.
Hey.
Yeah, for sure. So
What was your question?
she was asking if when we had students and kids come up, they like if they were rebellious and they didn't want to be there. Yeah, for sure. So a lot of the kids that would come in, they're just coming. They see all the wrecks that they have, and they're just like, I just want to get away for a week at this cool summer camp with my friends from youth, and they just see, a girl or a guy that they like, and they just go for the week. And they're not even there really to hear the message or whatever the Lord is trying to speak to them for the week. And so, yeah, there are plenty of rebellious kids. So,
Yeah.
Somebody else a question? Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
How would you, each of you say this is going to impact how you live your life in the decades to come?
So Miller wants to know, how is this going to impact them moving forward in their life?
I'm going to go first, so then I'll steal my answer.
Yeah, really probably one of the main ways is kind of what I was talking about with that whole aspect of just bearing one another's burdens. And one of my big things that I really wanted to do leaving the mission field is not leave what I learned on the mission field. Like, I can bring so much of that life back here and apply it to my daily life here. And I would say that aspect of just being there for my other brothers and sisters in Christ, being there to help them through their struggles, and just always being there for anything that they would need. My dad always says doing life with people. I mean, just absolute that day-to-day walk, checking in with people, seeing how their walk is, seeing how they're doing with their struggles. But yeah, I'd say that's probably the big application that I would have from my time, at least.
Yeah, and I would like to touch a little bit on what Drew just said, is in the same, basically the same thing, but it came to me, like it made me realize a lot more that even though you don't know somebody on a personal level, they can be struggling as much as you are. And so being able to kind of just be there for them and just ask them questions, and not necessarily provoke questions to ask them, but just to be there for them. Because in reality, the students that come to Snowbird and maybe you guys know this too, is it's easier to talk to somebody about your life with somebody you don't know than it is to talk about your stuff that you're dealing with the people you do. And so that gives us the opportunity to just like be there and just be there for them. And that kind of already just initiates conversation just naturally. So.
Any more questions?
You got to answer too.
Yeah, so I know for me, from how that impacts my life specifically, I would say that it really taught me like how God pours into you, and how if you're not poured into, you can't pour out in people. And also mainly like I mentioned earlier, like praying for the kids and getting to know them as soon as they get there, like being intentional with the people you talk to and are at work with every day, and specifically trying to reach those people that God has set right in front of you for a reason. And I know I would say those are the two biggest things that I think that have impacted me and definitely will impact the rest of my life, because doing that day to day for 3 months, that will teach you something, and living it out. For sure. So, any more questions?
Records. Oh. I got it. Yeah, so I was able to. Oh yeah, the question was, because I had mentioned earlier that we had some students who came with addictions, and so then my dad was just asking what those addictions are. And so the answer to that question is, I was able to work with students a little bit more than Blaze was, and I was able to see a little bit more of a broader spectrum of students. So I had groups that were between like 9 and like 14, and then from like 15 to 18. And the biggest struggles that I could see, like of addiction-wise, was in young men was pornography. That was the biggest, and being able to, even at a young age, at 11 years old, there was still plenty of young men that were being exposed to that. There was also some that were addicted to drugs. I met a couple that were addicted to weed and different things like that. So we do see some of that. It's kind of hard to deal with it while we're there because we don't know them. But we do have a procedure by which we are able to tell the youth pastors about what's happening, and then their youth pastors are able to decide if it's severe enough, do we need to go to the authorities, higher authorities, and then we also see abuse, sadly, quite a bit of the time as well, either through parental guidance or within their church or within their school, or so forth and so on. So, yep.
What would you guys say to our students here who are considering going in a longer-term mission, and to their parents who are ready to let things go?
That's a good question. Repeat the question.
So the question was, what would you say to the students here who are considering doing something very similar to what we have done this summer and going out and being on the mission field? And also to the parents, what would you say to them? Do it. Let them. But in all seriousness, I would 100% encourage it. There might be some reservations that you might have before, but in the end, it's worth it, and how much you grow in your relationship with God, how much you just take away from that time, and how much you are able to learn about pouring into others. So I would 100% recommend that, and they'll be fine. So just let them go.
Yeah, to answer a little bit more of that question is, so I'll give you a little bit of a backstory. So about 2 weeks before I got the call that I was going to be accepted to Snowbird, I had in my mind, I said, nope, not going to do it. Because number one is not because it wasn't because I didn't want to do it. I had a desire to do it, but there were certain things in my life that weren't ready. I wasn't quite in the financial position that I wanted to be in to leave for 3 months. But then there was just something in my heart that God led me to feel, and that was rely on me for that. And so I was able to just put myself in a place of vulnerability in that, and just to kind of step out in faith. And in the end, mission work is very good. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you have to go to Snowbird or you have to go to Mexico. Go where God is calling you to. And God will be able to use you in that place. So for the students, and then for the parents, as Drew had said, let them do it. If this is something that they want to do, and this is something that God is calling them to do, then let them do it. And then don't stand in between the will of God and their calling. So.
Yeah, I'll answer a little bit too. Yeah, guys, King David was 16 when he became king. Get into this work while you're young. The work is here as well. And I'm not, like Ben said, you don't have to go to, the work is here. The work is everywhere we go. We are always on mission. And I highly encourage it, to our young folks here too, if you see these opportunities, Snowbird, La Paz, or maybe somewhere else, think about it. Seriously, pray about it. If the Lord has put that desire in your heart, take it forth and let it prosper. So.
We'll let you guys off the hot seat. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. So, again, we didn't tell them that part.